Muhammadu Buhari insists that cashless policy and naira swap have huge benefits for the country. Prevailing cash crunch may worsen forex shortage, says Fitch. NNPC fixes March 21st to begin drilling of oil in Nasarawa State. Plus, oil prices finished the week 2.5% lower. This is Business Express on the network service of the NTA, and we are reaching you from Abuja, the nation's capital. I am Benny Adams, your guide. It is that time we keep you up to speed with happenings around the world of business. We start by telling you that President Muhammadu Buhari insists that the cashless policy and naira swap by the central bank have short and long-term benefits for the country in dealing with insecurity and corruption, but agrees that the Apex Bank should take the recommendation of a parliamentary committee to rectify identified problems. Jide Onifade reports.
The president's comments came as the central bank governor, Godwin Emefiele, gave him an assurance that the 200 naira old notes taken out of circulation will be moved back into the economy. President Muhammadu Buhari, when he received members of the House of Representatives ad hoc committee on cashless policy and naira swap, said his earlier speech was comprehensive enough and was adequate as a response to the general outcry about the problems associated with the currency exchange. He described the aim of the policy as very good, as seen from the lessening of kidnappings and associated corrupt practices. He again accused banks of being a problem. Leader of the parliamentary delegation, Alhassan Doguwa, House Majority Leader and Chairman of the ad hoc committee, said the meeting with the president was necessitated by the need to bring him up to date on the problems of implementation and unintended consequences of the new cash policy. The House leader said the legislature and the government were on the same page insofar as the goals of the policy were concerned. He added, however, that more needed to be done to remove the hardship and inconveniences that have attended its implementation. CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele reported that he had met 15 top banks in an effort to resolve prevailing problems, assuring that the nation is at the end of the problem. He also gave the promise that by the end of February, CBN will bring into circulation between 700 to 800 billion naira, in excess of what is needed to run the economy. In the State House, Jide Onifade.
The governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele, has formally reacted to the presidential broadcast on the currency swap policy, assuring Nigerians that adequate steps have already been taken towards making the old 200 naira and all new banknotes more available and accessible to those in need across the country. Emefiele stated this while speaking to our State House correspondent Adamu Sambo on the new directives issued by President Buhari to the Apex Bank.
President has given his directives. I have met with about 15 banks this morning later, and we've given them directives about how they should make all the old 200 naira notes available effective today. And I can assure Nigerians that this will help to reduce the pains. We meet with the bankers at least once daily to get feedback and the rest of them. And I think the president has sealed the whole of the issues this morning in his broadcast. And I think I can only just appeal to Nigerians, let's allow this policy to work. This policy is one policy that goes to solve the problem of reducing corruption and illicit financial flows. This policy goes to resolve some of the problems in the economy. This policy also goes to reducing the level of insecurity in the country. So these three issues, which are the tripod of this administration's policy, are all embedded in this policy. We should just allow it to work. We keep saying this. There are some temporary pains, but I can assure Nigerians that the long-run benefit to Nigeria is overwhelming, and we should just give it a chance to work.
And still on the currency, Nigerians have been reacting to the announcement by President Muhammadu Buhari that he has given the Central Bank of Nigeria the approval for the old 200 naira notes to remain a legal tender for 60 days, up till April 10, 2023. Bose Abel, who has been following the naira redesign policy development, brings an update on this latest development.
The retrieval of old Naira banknotes and scarcity of the new redesigned note brought tension and pressure on citizens and financial institutions. From long queues at ATM terminals, frustrations leading to violence and difficulties in business transactions, these began to take a toll on the economy. However, President Muhammadu Buhari, in a broadcast, disclosed that the 200 naira old note would be released into circulation as legal tender to further ease the supply pressure and particularly calm nerves among citizens.
It's a bit favorable to Nigerians. At least we ease the suffering and the stress of Nigerians, so we plus him for this.
At least with their money now, people will not complain much. If that 200 naira note is available.
With the fact that you can actually spend your old naira note is kind of a relief. The 200 naira.
At least it will give an ease, but the only issue I see there is the 200 naira is not even much available like the higher notes.
Some deposit money banks confirm that most of the old notes have already been taken to CBN, but await directive for the next line of action. So far, the cashless policy program has helped with the retrieval of about 2.1 trillion naira, representing about 80% out of the 3.23 trillion naira in circulation.
A cashless system where people are making all payments using their electronic systems, and obviously that was actually what was being canvassed for.
Well, latest data released by the National Bureau of Statistics reveals that Nigeria's headline inflation rate for January 2023 increased to 21.82% compared to December 2022. Headline inflation, which was 21.34%, the headline inflation had dropped for the first time in 11 months in December 2022, before it shot up to the current 21.82%. My colleague Leah Katumbabatunde had a chat with Dr. Chijoke Ikechukwu, MD and CEO of Dignity Finance and Investment Limited, on what this portends for the economy vis-a-vis the current cash crunch. We bring you that interview.
You're welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
Perhaps I start by asking you your take on the president's broadcast.
It was expected that such broadcasts be expected within this period because the entire country was looking like we're in chaos. Nobody knew what exactly was the right decision to take. So much scarcity of currency, both old and new, and only a few banks that are open to attend to customers. Nigerians started getting frustrated out of all the decisions happening in the monetary policy area. So it was necessary for the president to speak to Nigerians to be able to douse the entire anxiety that's been existing. So it's welcome, and we believe that in implementing some of the things he said, we will have a little succor, and that will just relieve Nigerians of the kind of pressure we've been going through. So that's actually my take. So it's a welcome development, and we just do hope that implementation of this will just be a solution. Also, of course, we know that old currencies have all been taken back to the CBN, and so to bring them out, especially 200 out again, distribution, the time lag it will take for this currency to go around the entire country will take a while, probably within between 3 weeks to 1, because the country is very large, and the logistics of moving all these monies around the entire country will just be a problem. But over time, I expect Nigerians should be patient enough to actually allow some of these problems to be solved. Also granted the fact that it has improved the cashless system, where people are making all payments using their electronic systems, and obviously that was actually what was being canvassed for many years now, so that we can just be cashless. This has actually improved the cashless system. However, the sufferings that came with it have been so enormous.
Okay. Actually, a friend just told me this morning that yesterday they were able to shop groceries using POS, and it was something that he thought that would never happen, but it is happening now. So how do you see this driving financial inclusion?
It has actually it has actually driven it, increased it actually. I know a good number of friends who are actually very educated and highly placed there, but they never had cards. They never used cards. Never ever used cards. But of course, everybody will be forced to use his card, or even go and ask for one right now. But you also notice that in many banks, their links and their payment systems have actually been faulty within this period. I do wish that they use this opportunity to perfect all those payment systems, so that we will have seamless payments, especially now that we want to drive the cashless system. Inclusion has actually been improved. The average woman in the market already knows that people are not going to pay cash, so she has a POS person beside her who is going to collect her money and transfer to her eventually after. So that is actually working, and we are going to be expecting more and more POS systems all over the place. More should be churned out so that it can reach everywhere. There are many communities today with just one bank serving the entire community, and they need such inclusion. So, in other words, for those kind of people, the more they have payment POS all over the place, the better for them and the better for the country.
Okay, so just early this week, actually, I was at the meeting between the CBN and the diplomatic community, and the CBN governor in his presentation observed that food prices had come down in most markets because of this intervention. And then we also had a lot of people forecast, institutions forecast that we're going to see inflation decelerate in January. But then the numbers came out and they actually did not come down. They went the other way up. Did you see that coming?
I already knew that even if there was going to be any reduction in the numbers, in the inflation rates, it would just be as marginal as 0.01 or something like that. But to even have it increase surprised a few people because of those kind of statements. But of course, I knew that the things that caused the increase in the rate are still there. They are still there. The food inflation, which has always led the increase in rates, listening to reading through the global food index, price index of FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization, they mentioned that all global food prices started dropping globally. And so I expected that Nigerians' own should also drop, as was mentioned. Unfortunately, ours increased. But the reason for this increase could also not be far-fetched. The other parts of the world where these prices dropped are not experiencing some of the things we're experiencing. They are not experiencing the kind of exchange rate we have today. They are not experiencing any naira or their currency redesign. They are not experiencing insecurity. They are not experiencing the kind of distortions we have in the country for one reason or the other. They are not experiencing political systems like that we're seeing, kind of violent political systems that we're seeing. So that's what has made the difference. So I expect that no matter how the efforts we have made to reduce, especially food pricing, ours may not go down like the global situation is, just because of the circumstances peculiar in our own country and economy.
So the NBS attributed, as you've pointed out, the driving forces for this to include food, and rent was also prominent in it. How is rent affecting us in this season?
Within the period, you see, rent is not existing on its own in isolation. Something led to the increase in rent. We have to start from the exchange rate, which has been up there for such a long time. Most of the most of the building materials that we use today for construction are imported, and as they are imported, even if they are being produced here, we still see their raw materials being imported, and so cost of building became very high. Every builder of any residential or office block or any kind of building at all or construction, they have all complained about increase in the cost of building. And so when people have built and they have paid so much to build, it only becomes natural that that will affect the rent, and the rent will increase. That's actually what has increased, what has affected the rent today is from that exchange rate, is from the distortion in the supply chain, which actually has started since from the Ukrainian-Russian war, and again exchange rate and many other things, movement of goods, from clearing of goods from the wharf, and then movement of such goods to other parts of the country. Those are the things that have affected rent. So I agree that rent is a factor to that.
Okay, let's go back to food prices now. That clearly the prices have dropped in markets around the country. What do you make of that? What are the factors?
Yes, the major factor right now is a drop in demand. You go to certain supermarkets that people used to throng, a lot of people used to go to. You don't see them again because there's no money anywhere. There's no money. And so what has actually affected the drop this time in prices is just the fact that demand has dropped. Demand has dropped because people are now beginning to keep their money for the very essential things. Yes, prioritizing their spending. So if that has happened, it's expected that when demand drops, prices will also drop, and the cost of existence will drop. That's actually what has affected that. Otherwise, every other factor is the same. When the demand starts increasing again, you see that these prices will start going up. Sellers are looking for who will even come and price their products. And so if they're not coming, they're ready to sell at any price being priced by these buyers. And that's what has driven the drop in the price of food.
So we hear that one of the objectives of the cashless policy as put forward by the CBN is to tame inflation, which has just gone up consistently for quite a number of months, close to a year before it halted. But again, we're seeing that prices are dropping, as we have established, and then just when we thought the drama would continue to escalate, the president says there's some alterations. The 200 naira notes will be plowed back into the system. How is this going to affect the pricing of food?
If you look at the first MPC meeting for the year, the major reason that the Apex Bank gave for increasing MPR was the fact that they wanted to tame inflation, and so with that, with a higher MPR, inflation will be tamed. But that didn't happen because there are other factors that are affecting inflation rate, not just the monetary policy. If you just keep tweaking the monetary policy and increasing it at all times, and all those other factors are still affecting the pricing, then we're not going to achieve anything yet. The effect of that increase in MPR will start affecting that which you want to reduce, which is inflation. Because when the MPR increases, interest rates in banks will continue to increase, and when they increase, you also see that prices of goods and services are going to increase. So there will be a point, an apex point, where you are not going to go beyond increasing the MPR. And so, having said that, to say that it's not all the time that interest rate wants to be tamed, that you have to continue to increase MPR. And so if we have said that, we need to know that we are going to continue checking these other things that are affecting pricing in the market. Many other things are affecting pricing. We are going to start dealing with them one after the other. Some of them are fiscal, actually. We need to look at the fiscal side of it to see what aspect of the fiscal policy that is affecting our pricing, that is affecting our inflation, that's affecting the economic situation of the country. So it's a whole lot. Some of them are beyond the control of the CBN. Some of them are even beyond the control of both the fiscal and the monetary policy. And so we need to deal with them as a country. It's actually a country thing, not just a particular institution.
Okay, so before I let you go, what are your projections for the coming months, and would you say that perhaps it's time elections will be over by the next MPC meeting, that will see a drop in policy rates?
What I expect to happen is that policy rates should not be increased anymore. They can just remain where they are. You see, when you change a rate, you need to see the impact. Impact does not happen in 1 month, in 2 months. Impact may happen over a period of, say, 3 months, 4 months, as the case may be. We have not tested the increase that we have. In fact, that's why it looks like MPR has been increased, yet it's not bringing down the inflation rate. So I don't expect that MPR will be touched right now. But it's also possible that CRR may be increased. It's also possible because a lot of money is coming into the system, into the banking system this time. And maybe I expect that CRR may be touched, increased, in order to get in those monies again into CBN. That's what I expect to happen. But the good thing about the monies that have entered the system is that interest rates have dropped. Even with MPR increasing, interest rates within banks, interbank rates have actually dropped. So what it tells you is that there's so much money in the system, MPR is gone up, yet interest rates have dropped. That's actually what's happening, and that's what's going to happen more.
Perhaps you explain that a bit now, when there's money in the system and the interest rates have come down.
Yes. What it means is that, it's expected that whenever MPR rises, every bank will increase their rates, their borrowing rates, which is their deposit rates and their lending rates. But today we see that deposit rates have actually dropped. Before Christmas, before December, towards the end of December, rates were as high as, if possible, 28%, 29%, 30%. They are ready to pay just to have monies in. Today, you can hardly see any bank that is ready to pay 11% for deposits. Oh, wow. So just because of the monies that have come into the system. So they all have enough monies now. And so if they keep the money and they're not able to have an outlet for them, they are going to incur costs because of the high interest costs. So that's why the interest rate is dropping, just even when the MPR is high.
Okay, I must sincerely thank you, Dr. Ikechukwu, for always having time to come and share thoughts with us.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure always.
Thank
you. And moving on, the stock market closed the last trading day for the week on a negative territory with 53,804.46 basis points. At the end of today's trading, a total of 172.9 million shares in 3,077 deals, valued at 3.7 billion naira, exchanged hands. Market capitalization stood at 29.3 trillion naira. Well, that is much we can take on Business Express. Join us again on Monday for another fresh edition.
NTA. You can't beat the reach.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can watch NTA International live on your TV, computer, iPad, tablet and phone. Log on to visiontv.co.uk and click on Entertainment, then NTAI. You can also download the iOS or Android app on your mobile devices to watch NTA International on the go, anywhere in the world. NTA International, your window to the world.
Whether it is a study, a vacation, or a job offer, going somewhere new and foreign is so exciting as a first-timer. It can be overwhelming and confusing, but it must be done right and legally. Get your passport. This is what validates your citizenship of a said country. It comes in 32 and 64 pages. Requirements for a passport include a local government letter of identification, birth certificate or age declaration, a guarantor's form sworn to before a magistrate, parents' letter of minors under 16 years, and marriage certificate where applicable. Apply for a visa. A visa is a documented permit to enter a country legally. It could be for study, visit, medical, tourism, and even job offers. Depending on your destination and purpose, you can be called for an interview at the embassy within 2 weeks. You should know that requirements vary from country to country. Depending on your destination, some visa applications will require your bank statements or even medicals. Note that this interview might not guarantee approval, especially when certain conditions are not met. You should know that visa fees are non-refundable. Certain routine health checks, tests, and vaccinations are necessary. Some countries require your yellow card, which is a certificate of vaccination showing that a traveler has been immunized against yellow fever. For many countries, a COVID-19 vaccination evidence or a PCR negative test is required. Travel tickets. To have a better planned and convenient trip for first-time travelers, it is advised to have a travel agent help with your booking and other logistics. It is important to go online to check for prohibited travel items, depending on the country you are traveling to. Also, ensure you get basic knowledge about the city like weather, currency conversion, language, transportation, and so on. These are just the basic information you should arm yourself with if you plan to make that trip abroad. Also, ensure you understand and adhere to the country's rules and regulations to avoid stories that touch